Okay, man. We finna go ahead and go live right now. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome to the Naked Lunch Club podcast. I'm Brother Nubia with my co-host,
Brother 360 Copper.
Brother 360 Copper. How you feeling this morning, man?
Hey, man, I'm feeling pretty good, man. Got a day off today, so I'm feeling good, man. Ready for the show this morning, man. How about yourself, brother?
Well, man, to all the mothers out there in Motherland, Happy Mother's Day. We celebrate them today, so let's give a shout out to all. Tell your wife I said Happy Mother's Day as well, brother. And I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Let me see here.
Yes, sir. Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
All right, here we go. So we're talking about today the critical race theory. And before we jump into the critical race theory, let me just sort of lay out an idea of what we mean and what we're talking about when we talk about the critical race theory. The critical race theory is a school of thought that basically realizes that the American society is based and steeped in racism. It developed out of the professional law schools when scholars begin to realize that the American legal system and many pockets of society is steeped in racism. And that racism has played a major role in the share of power amongst the groups of people in this country. And also has had a major impact on the economical distribution of wealth in this country. So when we talk about the critical race theory, in essence, we're talking about this country's ability to keep peoples of color in a designated social stratosphere where they can only achieve so much, while on the other hand, pale society is allowed to move about and to achieve unchecked. So that's what critical race theory basically is. What brought it to my attention was I'm a troll. I troll the internet. I troll the news. I'm always looking for what's going on in the world, and especially as it relates to my people, to people of color. I'm always concerned about the direction this country is going to take and how is it going to impact us. Now I see the racist Republican Party throwing hissy fits. They've even gotten a few black Republicans to join in the fight with them to ban critical race theory being taught in school, under the guise that pale people assume that if we tell the truth, somehow or another, it's going to produce guilt in their children. And then somehow that guilt is going to have a adverse effect on their mental health and their emotional health. No surprise, though. No surprise, the truth does that to you. When you hit with the truth, it hurts, right? That's what they always tell us. So the other thing is, they're bellyaching about the damage that it will do to their kids. While I believe my brother today used a term that they were just basically ignoring it. I can't remember the term you used, brother, but you said they were ignoring the fact that the damage they have done to us, the damage they have done to our children. And how dare these black politicians side with these criminals. I want to play a real quick clip, if I can, from Mark Hill, his debate with Vernon Jones on the Black News Channel. Check this out.
Okay. I have not called you a name. I've not called you a time. I've not called you a handkerchief man. I've not called you a sample. I've not called you a shine. I've not called you a hambo. I haven't done any of that. So you're not going to come on my show and call me dumb. What I will tell you is that critical race theory is a theory that actually emerged out of critical legal studies. It is a theory that makes an attempt to understand the law through the lens of race. And it's founded on some fundamental presumptions. One is the intractability of race and racism. And it's an intractable problem in America. And that we have to use the lens of race to make sense of things. It also is based on the use of counter stories. Listening to as Derek Bell, the critical race scholar, said, the voices at the bottom of the well to make sense of the world and to make sense of the law. These are two big theories, two big pillars of it. And so what we want to do, if you want to ban it, you have to explain to me why. But the problem is, all these Republicans, all of these scholars, all of these Republicans, all these non-scholars, they say, I'm going to ban critical race theory, and they can't answer it. Then he says, well, if you can't answer it, then you must not know what it is. It's like somebody, he who smelt it dealt it kind of logic. The fact of the matter is he can't define it because he don't know what it is. They look for things to ban, to signal to white people, hey, I got your back. They ban things that aren't even an issue. There is no public school teacher in America who is attempting to there is no public school teacher who is attempting to put critical race theory in schools. Critical race theory isn't even taught in high school. It's not even really taught in college. It is taught in law school, and it is increasingly been taught in graduate school. Because it is a set of theories and understandings to make sense of our lived realities through the law and through everyday life. Those are the things we should be talking about. So if you want to be a black Republican, your first day in office as governor, which you ain't going to be because you ain't going to beat Stacey Abrams as a black Republican, you only in the line because the line is short. But if you want to do this, your first thing, not to ban bullying, not to try to do something against the violence of LGBT students, not to do something about the gap in resources. Instead, you want to ban a theory that nobody's trying to bring in the first place. That is a smoke signal to white America and really to white racists.
Wow. I mean, Brother Hill laid it out. He said it. He couldn't have said it any better than anybody I know that could have said what he said. When we get these politicians like Vernon Jones, who side with these racist people in this country, and kid yourself not, there are racist pale Americans yet in this country, and they are in power. We might as well pull the blanket off the bed and uncover the nakedness, because it's the truth. There are pale racist people in this country that are in power who would love nothing more than to see the demise and the dysfunction of black people continue in this country while they continue to profit. Politicians like Vernon Jones are a threat. They are a threat to the survival of the black people in this country. Brother Copper, your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more, man. But I would also say this as well. We have to make sure that, you know, as black classified people, and I say black classified just for the sake of the show, but we have to make sure that we're looking at things from all angles, because these politicians on both sides are helping keep our demise or keeping us where we're at. They're helping in the process. I'm not saying that they're, you know, fully responsible, because, you know, we have to take some responsibility. But politicians on both sides, meaning Republicans and Democrats, both, for instance, like I was talking to you earlier about benign neglect, that policy is still being practiced today. That policy actually was coined by Patrick Moynihan, who was a Democratic senator in the 70s, and he sent a memo to President Nixon at the time, and basically it's what you said earlier, just pretty much a policy just ignoring you know, anything that was needed for so-called African American black classified people. And actually, he was over urban affairs, and he was also in favor of cutting programs like program that I was involved with there in Rockford, Upward Bound, you know, those trio programs. He was in favor of cutting a lot of social programs that were supposed to help us. So benign neglect actually is still being practiced to this day.
And you know, when you said that, you know, we look at the issues of black people in America, and you say that, well, it's not entirely someone else's fault, but we have to play our role in it too. And that was the backdrop behind Kimberly Crenshaw's ideology or theory of the critical race theory when she developed it. She looked at the country, and especially when Obama came into office, there was this huge push to say that racism, America was post-racial. there was a big push to say that. Kimberly, back in the 80s, actually looked at those types of movements that would classify America as being post-racial, and she noticed that no, that's not true. It was a case of, in many instances, benign neglect in this country, where the powers to be, so to speak, wanted to pull the wool over our eyes. And they've done that, and they've done a wonderful job to a certain extent. You can see it, people like Vernon Jordan and this other guy out of Carolina, the other black Republican who's all of a sudden emerged on the stage. By the way, when Trump was in office, you didn't hear a whole lot of black Republicans on the stage. You saw them as being showboys or shines. Now all of a sudden, these pale races have thrown these coons up in our faces, and they expect us to listen to them and follow them. Marx said that coons like Jones throw out red flags and signals to white races that I got your back, I'm going to take care of you. While in the midst of it all, we are continuing to suffer the national the national hold.
Brother Music, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me ask you a question really quick.
Go ahead, bro.
Let me ask you a question really quick. Do you feel that any Democrats are responsible? The Democratic Party actually itself. Do you think they have any responsibility in the I'll just say the lack of the lack of support for black classified people, because like I said, Martin Luther King Jr. himself, who was a Democrat, I believe, was he a Democrat?
King.
He said himself he believes he led us into a burning building, meaning that the whole civil rights movement, the integration thing, that actually really hurt us. Because when we actually were separated and had to do for ourselves, we did for ourselves.
We did much better.
So we did much better. We did way better.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party is responsible for the civil rights movement and these civil rights bills that really haven't gotten us anywhere.
Well, let me say this. Here's something that we've got to all admit and be honest. Both political parties in this country are controlled by pale races. There's no question about that. The amount of influence that we have is what they've allowed us to have. We haven't exerted our own influence. We've been given a floor to work on, such as the civil rights movement, such as this American Constitution, which gives us a foundation or a floor to work on with the Fair Housing Act that was created in the 60s, the Brown versus Board of Education. These are all floors that pale racists have given us to work within. That's framework. So we've tried to manage and work within that framework, and yes, it has been a detriment to us. Carter G. Woodson's book, The Miseducation of the Negro, talks about that in detail when he talks about the recolonization of Sierra Leone, of I can't think of the other ones, but the Monrovia, which is named after James Monroe, an African country named after a pale racist American. It's systemic of the what I'm basically saying is that they give us these rooms, these grounds to work on, but we have to work within that framework. If you go outside of that framework to get anything done, then it becomes an issue. Then you become a El Hajj Malik Shabazz. You become a Fred Hampton. You become a Stokely Carmichael. When you go outside of that framework to build. So, and to answer your question in short, yes, the Democratic Party has hurt us tremendously. Not as much as the racist Republican Party, because the Democratic Party, has been able to throw out a few bones for us to latch on to. But at the same time, though, those bones only provided a meal, but really no sustenance for us. They didn't give us any power. They didn't build
Actually,
anything.
late 1800s, late 1800s, most of us, black classified, you know, who participated in politics were Republicans.
Yeah.
You know, so and I'm not, and listen, I'm not supporting either party. I don't, you know, if I vote or anything, I you know, I'll do it as an independent. But
well, two major.
a lot of us were Republicans.
Well, two major things happened in this political part of this country, and pale racists will try and deny it and cover it up. But the first thing that happened was the Great Compromise. I believe it was 1887 when the racist president was elected, Rutherford B. Hayes, who told and you know, the weird thing about that the Great Compromise was the circumstance was very similar to what happened in this last election. There was the Democratic Party at that time had actually won the popular vote, and the Republican Party had won the Electoral College at that time. So the Democratic Party, which is what we would call the racist party of today, is the Republicans of today. There was a flip-flop that we'll talk about. That was the other major thing that happened in American politics. But during the Great Compromise, Rutherford B. Hayes told the Democratic Party, if you pull the troops, the Democratic Party told Rutherford B. Hayes, actually, if you pull the troops out of the South, we'll concede you being the president. And that's why the Safe Harbor Day was created, by the way, so that after a particular time and date, once those electoral votes are sent in, they can't be challenged. That's what created the Safe Harbor Day. But in the process of that, Rutherford B. Hayes allowed the Democratic Party to pull the troops out of the South. Now, when you look at your history, you understand that the Reconstruction period ended at the same time of the Great Compromise. Once those troops were pulled out of the South, then the Reconstruction came to a screeching halt. The second major event, and again, pale racists will argue, was the New Deal with Roosevelt. When Roosevelt came in, the Democrats at that time were for small government, and the Republicans were for big government at that time. So when Roosevelt came in and he created the New Deal and began to create all these social programs, the Democrats at that time said, hell no, we ain't going for this crap. And they wanted to shut government down. Roosevelt had so much influence and authority, he told them basically, go ahead, shut it down. But if you don't return to Congress in a certain amount of time, we're pushing everything through. And at that time, the Democrats all of a sudden became big government. Republicans became small government. So it was a flip-flop. And like I said, pale racists won't tell you this, but when you study American politics, you see that there was a major flip-flop during the New Deal era. And you'll see that during the Great Compromise. If you look at the history of this country, there's always been instances that marked change in this country that were pivotal to the direction this country was going in. This is why, to me, the subject of the critical race theory is so important today, because to me it's indicative of the direction that this country is headed in. And it's important because usually when this country heads in a particular direction, it's toward pale privilege and black denial, or African American denial, or however you want to say that. We usually get the short end of the stick, and we got a few coons, just as we did in slavery. Malcolm X or El Hajj Malik Shabazz talked about the house nigga versus the field nigga. We still have that dynamic going on. In my book, I call them the dehumanized Negro and the rehumanized Negro, because they're yet today. And the only difference between the rehumanized Negro and the dehumanized Negro is their points of departure. The rehumanized Negro will say, America is great. America's been good to us. We can't find any place on the planet that would treat us better than these pale folks treat us in America. The dehumanized Negro will say, no, America has stumped on me. America has treaded up on me. America has shitted up on me. Americans treated me like I was an animal and cast me out. That's what the dehumanized Negro would say. But these rehumanized Negroes who have been sort of sucked into the ideology of the thought of a post-racial or a melting pot America, and now they're trying to spew this bullshit back out at us. And my question, brother, is this. If America is such a great melting pot, then how come pale people don't compromise with black people? Why does that everything have to be their way? And culpability of the critical race theory. This is the only country that I know of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, brother, but what other country do we know where we have national heroes that are criminally insane individuals? Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, just name a few. These men were criminally insane racists. Yet we have our institutions in this country named after them. I mean, you can count
Right.
them.
And I was going to say, you're not going to go to Germany right now and find any building named after Hitler or any one of those doctors, any one of those hospitals named after one of those Nazi camp doctors, any one of those other Nazi leaders. You're not going to go anywhere in Germany and find that. Yet, FBI building is named after J. Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
A man who was responsible, in my opinion, for killing. And I mean, in this document, it was responsible for killing all of our black leaders, all of them.
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers. I mean, you know, the list goes on. So he was responsible. He had his hands in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Had his hands in getting Marcus Garvey sent back over, deported from here. So, you know, I agree with you 100%. You know, and you know the images and the history that's taught to our children. You know, we have resilient children, man, because you know anywhere else, you know, your children are taught things like you just said. All the horrible things that these presidents did, you know, according to history, you know, according to the history that we're taught all the horrible things that these people did, and we have institutions named after them. You know, that'll drive a person insane. That's why we do have resilient children, and that's why it's a viral video of a white lady at a school board meeting, just, you know, bawling her eyes out, acting crazy because she wants to justify her not being a racist because she don't want her kids learning critical race theory at school. And in my opinion, these kids need to learn it.
Well, I agree.
Because according to Neely Fuller Jr., the average white kid by the age of 15 is pretty much well informed on white supremacy anyway.
Oh, no question.
So,
no question.
You know, also in my opinion, my conjecture, it might even help reinforce for these white children. Who knows?
Well, you know, again, you know, when we talk about pale society, there is so much that is, you know, here's the thing. CTR originated, or critical race theory came out of schools of thought among scholars like Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw and Delgado, and they argued that racism and pale privilege were the defining elements of this American legal system. And of American society was at large that this racist tenet controlled the legal systems around this country. And despite the language that this country used, which I call a coded language, it that was supposed to relate to equal protection was just that. There was no equal protection. And so the proponents of the critical race theory argued, you know, in a contextual form that historized the treatment of black people in this country. In other words, bam, slam, it's right here in your face. You can't can't argue the facts. Now, we can say all day long that such and such was a great person, but let's look at that individual's contributions to American society. When you get Thomas Jefferson calling black women less than humans, and in the names that he used to describe them, and then we look at black men who take upon themselves to use the term when they describe a black female as a bitch, as a thought, as a whole. They've been systematically taught to do that by the system, and they're not even aware of it. We're talking about critical race theory, and I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty of it. We're talking about critical race theory as it applies in our everyday life and our mental health. We have been systematically taught to hate ourselves as black people in this country. The legal system has told you and I that if we are in court, even if we're innocent, there's a 99.9% chance we'll be convicted. While on the other hand, if you're a pale person, you guilty, and you're in court, this country and this history has taught us that it's a 99.9% chance you'll be found not guilty and you'll be sent home. That's facts. Vernon Jones can't argue that. Nobody can argue that. So when we get these teachers whining about critical race theory being taught, and by the way, I don't think there's any educators really pushing for it. I think it's just something that happens naturally. If you think about it, it happens naturally. If you're going to tell me that Malcolm X was a hate monger and a racist, then I'm going to do the research. I'm going to find out if it's true. And if it's not true, I'm going to tell you. Why are you teaching me that this man was such and such when he was not? If you teach me that Thomas Jefferson was a great, powerful hero, and I go back and do the research, he's a coward, he was a liar, he was a diabolical, insane criminal. Let's just face it. Why are you teaching me that this is a great person when it's not? This is critical race theory. And if your little pale boy or girl is going to go home feeling guilty, it's not their fault, it's your fault for teaching them that bullshit in the first place. Tell them the truth. Now, I'm just touching the tipberg of this, because critical race theory actually goes way deeper than just talking about issues of Abraham Lincoln and him being taught in our schools that he freed the slaves. Point. Abraham didn't have the authority to free the slaves. It took an act of Congress to end slavery, not a president. So while you black folks out here hollering Lincoln freed the black folks, do your history. Lincoln didn't have the authority to free his damn self. Why do you think they killed him? It took an act of Congress.
Well, one other thing too, to add on to that, I get into historical cases a little bit too, just like with the whole time neglect. Got to think about the Dred Scott case as well. Roger, I believe it was a Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney. And I'm quoting, I'm paraphrasing, quoting kind of both. He said in that case that the black man has no rights that the white man are bound to respect. Okay, so that's still going on as well. That ties into what you said about 99% of the time you on the court. That was a Supreme Court justice who made that decision on that case, and he said, that the black man has no rights that the white man is bound to respect. And if you think about it, Brother Newbeer, that's also something that we still living under to this day.
We're still dealing with that, And when you look at the horrific act of Derek Chauvin, who blatantly murdered an innocent man, and I say innocent because at the time, Floyd George was either unaware that he committed a crime or he had not committed a crime. We don't know if the $20 bill was counterfeit or not. We know they said it was, but there was never any proof surrounding that, only than the word of the store owner and the police. We don't really know. So whether George Floyd had a criminal record or not, at this particular point, he was an innocent man. our children watch TV. They saw this man being brutally murdered by a pale police officer, someone whom they have been taught to fear. He goes to court. We're talking about critical race theory. He goes to court. He's convicted. And all of a sudden, the lawyers, I don't think they're going to get it, but they're pushing for a retrial based on juror misconduct of a jury member who made some statements after the trial was over with. I don't know what the law or the precedence on such a thing is. I don't even know if it exists. Maybe it does. I don't know. But my point is that now our kids, there's a possibility they got to see this monster. They got to relive this trauma over and over again. They have to go to school. They're sitting next to this pale kid who's going to say, well, George Floyd was breaking the law, or George Floyd was a criminal, with no regards to George Floyd's humanity, his human dignity. I'm getting to the core of critical race theory. I'm going to go beyond the scholarship of it, because there is a scholarship that's involved with it, and I agree with that. When we talk about power, we talk about economics, we talk about politics. There's a power to critical race theory. I agree with that. It's a power that's affected us in multiple ways. But let's bring it home. Let's talk about critical race theory as it relates to little Johnny sitting in that classroom. Well, up on that board and all around in his room, there's pictures of racist, pale people who hated black people, who enslaved and murdered black people. And now you want to teach me that these were great men, and I should want to strive to be like them. I remember when I was in an elementary school, they talked about Abraham Lincoln, and he had attempted 11 times at political office before he finally succeeded. Then that was a great thing. That was motivation for me. And I said, well, if Abraham Lincoln can try 11 times, hell, I can try 11 times too. And then I grew up, and I realized I can try 1,100 times and won't get anywhere. That pale kid can try 11 times and get there. Critical race theory. That's reality. And any politician who does not want that to be taught in school is a racist. Any black politician who opposes the critical race theory is a coon. I'm just telling you how I see it. And I don't think that there's any room to argue the damage and the effects that racism has done to us, whether we want to say we're Africans, whether we want to say we're Native Americans. It doesn't matter when it comes down to the fact we've all been treated the same. That movie, Sankofa. I don't know if you ever saw Sankofa, but there was this beautiful model who went to Gordy Island to get photographs. And you had the pale people there photographing her, and she's flashing around. And an old ancient African comes up to her and he says, you are the daughter that was taken away. And she looks at, oh, no, I'm not. I'm not the daughter. I'm not an African. I'm not this. I'm not that. And he says, by the nighttime you will see, in so many words, So the story goes on. She falls asleep and she wakes up and she's in one of those dungeons. She's now a slave in Africa. She's going back to that time period. And she wakes up and she's surprised that she's there. And so you see all these pale men grabbing on her, pulling her, and she's yelling, wait, I'm not a slave. I'm not a slave. I'm an American. I'm not a slave. The whole time she's yelling and she's not a slave, she's being treated like a slave. The whole time we're yelling, we're not black. We're not African. The whole time we're yelling, we are in a country of equality. We're being treated like slaves the whole time. Doesn't matter what we are. Doesn't matter who we are. Male, female. You could be Barack Obama. You could be David Chappelle's character, Tyrone Biggums. It doesn't matter. We're all being treated the same repeatedly. And that is a product and a process of what we define as critical race theory, which teaches us that this country has a system of racism that has destroyed us, and it's continuing to destroy us. And brother 360 Copper, I'm going to say this, and if we don't stop and wake up and begin to look around what's going on, this mild Republican push to change voting rights, to restrict voting laws. Midterm is coming up. Midterm is coming up, and that's going to be when you vote for your governors and your senators. Right now, the Democrats have the majority. So Republicans are building a push to get into power. But this time, they're backed by extreme racists. Margie Green, that little faggot dude slept with a 70-year-old girl and lying, said he didn't, but he did. You got racist assholes like this in Congress. Dog breath Mitch McConnell, which he should go somewhere and commit suicide. Hell, he's been in politics for so long, we're sick of looking at him. He's like John Boehner and just quit. But you got these idiots, and you got this dumbass tramp running around. And the only reason why I can think that pale people will support Donald Trump is because they are racist. Period. Trump ass should be in jail or on his way to jail for what happened on January 6th. But yet, the punk is running around spouting bullshit. And this is why folks don't like my show, because I tell it like it is. I'm not going to pull any punches. Donald Trump is a hate-mongering racist. And the people who support him are racist. And if you black people don't wake up and start fighting against this, don't let these pale people pull critical race theory out of schools. Vernon Johnson, do not vote for that idiot. Tell him to carry his cheese-eating, cornbread, foot-slapping, Watusi ass on back to the shack. Because that's what he is. We got to wake up, brother. We got to wake up. We got to wake up, and we got to begin to exercise the greatest gift God gave us, and that's our brains. We got to start using them. We got to start looking through the lens of this racist country and call it what it is. Not only for our survival, but for our mental health and our emotional health. We just have to do it. Brother, I've been doing a lot of talking, man. And I talk a lot. And everybody knows that.
No, that's fine, because I'm gonna be completely honest with you as far as the terminology and the overall aspect of critical race theory. You a little bit more versed with me in that, because I boil everything down to just racism, white supremacy, and I'm a big listener, or I don't want to say follower, but Neely Fuller. I really listen to Neely Fuller and his aspect of racism, white supremacy, and he says, with racism, white supremacy, if you don't know what it is and how it works, anything else you think you know about it will only confuse you. And a lot of this stuff is mass confusion. And that's one of the biggest tools that they use against black classified people is mass confusion. They want us to be involved in, and I'm sorry, I don't know if a lot of the listeners are support the Democratic Party, but I get on both sides. I get on the Democrats a lot. Democrats have not done anything for us either. They want us to support a lot of things that don't help us collectively, and if we don't start working together, I don't like to say the word "come together" because that's too vague and too ambiguous. I say work together, whatever aspect that is. And the biggest aspect to me, again, that we need to be working together collectively, economically. If we don't start working together economically, if we don't start at least trying to create, businesses, with one another. And another thing that we need to start doing is doing our family genealogy. Because some of us might have land and patents out here that belong to our family that we might be able to get a hold of too as well. But I know we need to start working together more economically. We need to start listening to each other more. We need to stop being so jealous of one another. We need to stop being who cares about what ideology you support? I can't say that enough. You know, long as at the end of the day, we know that we have a common goal. You know, code with each other, and that's all that means. Just having a common goal of make sure we are all okay and doing well. That's what it is. That's, you know, at the end of the day, man.
And you know,
we need to make sure that, you know, each other is doing well.
Right.
You know,
Right. And we want to keep that
collectively.
Yeah, and we want to keep that in the context of, look, it's not about black people being better than any other people on this planet. It's not about that. That's not the case. We're long past where we have to prove ourselves to anything, anybody. It's about what's right. It's about being treated fairly in this country as a people. And that other people are treated fairly as well too. No, we don't just...
Yeah, that's real justice. That's real justice. Real justice is everybody being treated well. But I'll say this though, one of the biggest reasons why we are hated on the most is because, you know, we create the best we create the best things.
Yeah.
Think about all of the greatest. We create all the fly shit, man. It comes from us, from fashion to clothing to sports, entertainment. We are mimicked worldwide. Like, don't nothing fresh come out until we make it fresh. Period.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Right.
You know. You know. Even aspects of education and technology, science. You know, we play a big part in a lot of these things.
George Washington Carver,
for credit for it.
Right. Yeah.
What, say that again?
I said George Washington Carver, for example. You know, I'm just agreeing with what you're saying.
George Washington Carver. What's the other? It's so many inventors that what's his name? Thomas Edison stole patents from. You know, he had so many black classified apprentices that was doing a lot of the stuff for him.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, we've done so many things, man, and we've never gotten the credit for it, and you know, we get hated on to this day.
Yeah.
You know, from everything, man. So that's a big part of it. And another thing, we're the oldest people on the planet. You know, we are the original people on the planet everywhere. 4 corners of the planet, it was all dark. So, and they know that too.
Right, there's no question.
And that's another reason why we get hated on. You know, we the oldest people here, man. They get to digging up stuff everywhere. Like, damn, these niggas is everywhere. You know, so you know that's a big reason too why they hate us.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, and that's the thing too, brother. We have to, just come to the point where we recognize who we are, recognize our worth as a people, and understand that this show is about, it's not about putting other people down, but it's about protecting us. And that's something that we haven't been able to do. We haven't done. We haven't protected our own mental health, our own emotional health, our own financial health, our own political power. We haven't protected that. We've allowed other people to do that for us, such as a Democratic Party. And make no mistake, I'm not a fan of either Republican or Democrat. I call it as I see it. Joe Biden, you know, hey, like I tell everybody else, I'll believe him when I see it. Everything he said he's going to do, I'll believe it when I see it. And so far, I haven't seen it. The fact that he's more invested in other shit instead of going after Donald Trump, and this guy he appointed as the head of DOJ, I said he was a mistake, and I still believe he is. And I'll when I see it, I'll believe it. He's going after that faggot Giuliani, Tootie Rudy. But how come nobody's going after Trump? Come on now, we're talking about critical race theory in this country. That's a prime example. Now, if that had been Barack Obama that led somebody up to the Capitol, oh, he'd be hanged by now. It'd be open season on the black man. But this Trump can crumple, bring the country to his knees, and get away with it. Brother Nubia, with Brother 360 Copper. This is Naked Lunch Club. Thank you for joining us today. We discussed the critical race theory, and we hope you'll come back. If you got any questions or any concerns, you can email us at the Naked Lunch Club Podcast at gmail.com, or you can get on our website or on YouTube to the Naked Lunch channel, and you can provide your comments there. And until then, all we want you to do is to keep it real. And I am going to be out. Brother 360 Copper, got anything else you want to add to this?
Hey, no, not really.
All right, man. All right, listen, man, I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this today. Going forward, man, I'm gonna do my best to be on time and to be here every day. I got a lot of stuff going on right now, so that's no excuse. Again, thank you all for joining us, and at this point, I'm going to tune out and say peace, love.